Hello everybody, welcome to another video. This one's going to be focused on which are the 10 most efficient armor break champions. The reason I decided to do this video is because through your time in Marvel Contest of Champions, you'll find different types of needs and times where an armor break champion is going to be desirable. There's stuff with the Cavalier Monthly, there's going to be Act 7.2, Act 6 stuff where you feel that this may be applicable to have a champion that has the armor break debuff. The armor break debuff helps out in many different ways. It's a debuff that reduces down armor potency from the point of gaining it, from interworking with stuff with breakthrough, and also can interact well with mastery. So it has so many different needs, wants, and desires. But let's be real, it's kind of associated more with the Cosmic class. Cosmic seem to get armor break more quickly, and I think that kind of plays into the narrative of being a class advantage to those that are tech. But there are several different tech champions and various different champions that do have the armor break debuff. The biggest issue with this is what's the easiest rotation ones, the more usable, and just the more fun to use. So let's go and do a top 10. And as I said, this is the most efficient, easy rotation by either heavy attack, basic attack, synergy, or special attack. So let's get into it, shall we? So my first pick is Salsa Supreme. The reason I've decided to kind of choose this last is not in a great disrespect. I just feel that even though that is really effective, because essentially if you don't start off in any different kind of mode, you start off in the Terex ferocity mode, which means that when you activate a special attack, it means that you will throw an armor break debuff. If you then throw subsequent special attacks, regardless of certain types of difference of the different types of blessings, you will be able to fire off an additional one. I should be putting footage over the top of this in a moment that showcases doing up to 3, and at the same time throwing the slow debuff as well. Timing is essential in order to get this rocking, but I think that if you want a champion that is a mystic option, because again it's not just about cosmics, then at least you've got this that is still an effective champion for suppressing buffs, having the slow debuff, and various other things as well if you need an armor break option for anything. The next champion up is Symbiote Spider-Man. Symbiote Spider-Man is a bit of an odd one, and the reason it's kind of like down in my list is that it is pretty effective. It's actually got one of the longest, just by doing a heavy attack, armor breaks that I've seen in a very long time. Especially because it even says here, it says it's going to be for, Jesus, 80 seconds for an armor break is pretty impressive. The reason when it comes to like usability of this champion is great for stacking heavy attacks, but it's like you're thinking, it doesn't go anywhere. The reason that it's so much of a down in the list is it really is synergy driven. The one synergy in particular is the one with Red Goblin. I actually like Red Goblin, but I feel of late I haven't really been using him that much. However, if you're looking for an option that with Symbiote Spidey is able to on SP2 create a non-stacking fury buff granting 5% attack for each armor break on the opponent lasting 20 seconds. So the more heavy attacks you have, the more damage and such like, and again throwing footage of that particular instance, and it is a great option. It's just one of these situations of going, I don't see a lot of people using this for a lot of different content. This would be very good for some of the variants, but still it's an option if you wanted them. Next up is Dr. Doom. Wait, he doesn't have an armor break. That's completely right, and the reason that we're saying a lot of this is it's synergy driven, and that's the biggest thing as well. Synergy driven champs to get things like armor break is a bit of a problem unless you're like, well, you're wanting to set up a team a certain way. It's Mr. Fantastic that is the big linchpin to causing any kind of great armor break, which if you have him in a team, as it says here, heavy attacks apply up to 1 armor break debuff for 10 seconds, reducing armor rating by 15%. To be honest, it's an amazing little addition. And Mr. Fantastic is a great champion in any case, so it's great to have Dr. Doom being able to throw an armor break. So yeah, I can really rate this, but as I said, this is very synergy driven and doesn't really kind of put like high up the list because it's all about being the independent champion. You want a space on your team, and for whatever reason, yeah, I mean they're 2 great champions. Don't get me wrong, Mr. Fantastic and Dr. Doom. But the same thing goes like it's 2 champions to do 1 armor break. That's kind of like the thing we're trying to point out there. The same thing with the next one on our list, and that is Cap Infinity War. Under leadership, under 200 signatures, you're able to get the 100% chance with a Cosmic Champion on the team, do a well-timed block, and it places an armor break on the opponent of 233.33 armor reduction over 10 seconds. Now, that is stackable, and that's why it's slightly up in my estimations against like Dr. Doom. You can stack it. Doesn't mean it's going to be as potent, but yes, it is something you can stack. The great thing about this is that, yeah, teams can be created in a very special way around Beardo. The only restriction is the fact, again, it's 2 slots, or it's multiple slots for one champion that can do armor break. So it requires 2 to do an armor break. So that's really the kind of thing to point out there with that. So all the other champions are either part of the basic kits, or it's a case that there's some other factors. Let's move on. And one thing I've tried to do or kind of point out is that easy rotation, so quick to get an SP1. Not just about saying like, okay, well you need 2 bars of power to do. The easiest thing with any of these champions is doing basic hits, doing heavy attacks, and as well throwing at least 1 SP1. And there are champions out there like Sentinel, not even mentioned in this list, but I just think it's down to a potency factor. If you've got Hulkbuster, Hulkbuster is pretty potent, especially from rotations, and you can have an immense amount of fun. If you hit into a blocked champion with an SP1, you've not only got the champion stunned for a long length of time, you can literally rotate around heavy attacks and as well just do so much damage and then rotate into another SP1 if you are quick at hand with doing it. Hulkbuster is a great option for most champions. This then puts us into the heavy attack section of the best armor break champions. Venom is one of those champions that by throwing heavy attack is able to put an armor break on, which is, and this is the thing though, which is important, that it causes Venom to randomize most recent genetic memory buff. So if you're specific about what you've got, it can be a little bit of an issue, but to be honest, I think players will just want to look for something of a good angle going, okay, you must throw an armor break, so therefore, you know, this champion with a heavy attack. There is some really cool content in some of the variants which require the throwing as a hashtag villain champion with an armor break, so this definitely is a great option for those who want to do a consistent armor break. And yeah, the same thing can be said about Cull Obsidian. Cull Obsidian, again, is one of those champions that has a heavy attack based armor break, and it is very nice and very consistent. Actually, it's probably one of the best on a potency standpoint. 75% chance per strike to inflict an armor break debuff, reducing armor by 1023 for 14 seconds. The effect gains plus 5% duration and ability accuracy for each persistent charge. Fantastic. It's really great. Even though the champion isn't as when he was first entered into the game, because he was potent as anything, but it has, you know, still a champion and is widely used by the player base and is incredibly effective. This then leads me on to Terex, and Terex is a pretty cool character when it comes to dealing armor breaks. Not a champion for me that I've decided to rank up any further, even though the champion has been recently buffed, but it is very good, it's very potent and very quick in building up those armor breaks. As it says here, Terex's 4th light attack refreshes the duration of all personal armor break debuffs on the opponent. Something to point out, it's very important to like look at where the rock field is, and to a point of like, right, okay, timing that, so making sure that you are doing as much damage as possible, and also just kind of looking at that refresh, something that is still pretty cool, but yeah, it's easier rotations around light attacks, which I think, again, as I said, part of the basic kit is just, it's just making this like fluid and fun. And speaking of fluid and fun, imagine just one singular champion has to do a well-timed block. Now, we have seen plenty of those, and more so with Captain America Infinity War, but Corvus is one of those champions. A well-timed block from this guy will mean that you will be able to do an armor break debuff, and it's a champion that I use a lot when that's been a Cavalier node. Sometimes month in, month out, they will change the nodes, and if you've seen the Cavalier cheat sheet, you'll definitely know about this being a firm counter for that type of content. Now this leads me to the final champion, which is Medusa. Now I know that players may kind of feel that why is Medusa number 1, and there may be other options out there that would, in players' mind, be kind of more suited to being that number 1. There's also other champions that do Armor Shattered, but I do feel that Armor Shattered is actually one of the best things. Medium hits will get that armor break. That's the first thing. Building up quite nicely to an SP1, throwing that SP1 will mean that if you've got a certain amount, it will convert over very nicely in a nice little rotation to being that Armor Shattered. That's the first thing. The second part is then building up the champion to an SP3, throwing that, double Armor Shattered, and then building up with more bleed damage, which you get after the point of armor shattering the enemy. It is an effective champion still against a lot of the current meta of the game, building buffs and as well doing debuffs, which is a nice double whammy. So yeah, I really like Medusa. I think she's incredibly effective, and I think that building up the armor breaks, and especially to Armor Shattered, which gives that double value, is incredibly effective for players. So that's just my top 10 there. And yes, there are so many other armor break champions out there, which you can find in the link in the description. I mean, there's a whole host. Yes, there's champions that throw it with an SP2, but as I said, like, you know, building up to 1 bar of power is actually more easier than building up to 2 bars of power. So it's all about quick rotation, efficiency, and yeah, there's so many. There's House of X Magneto, there's Old Man Logan, of course, there's the passive ability from Carnage, but it's one of these things where there's just some out there that just, you know, tip a little bit higher, and I'm sure the buff version of War Machine is going to deliver some tasty amount, and yeah, you could say that Iron Fist delivers it as well, but are you really going to use Iron Fist for a whole multitude of content? Yes, he has done amazing things in the likes of Act 6.2.6, but look, he's not going to help you in the long run, is he? And on that note, thank you very much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please hit the like button, subscribe for more Marvel Contest of Champions based content, guides, news, information, all that stuff covered on here. And yeah, check out some other content located up there. I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.